Hello! Today's stories come from r/IDontWorkHereLady. We have 5 stories today. First up, Lady demands a sandwich. This did not happen to me, but I was there to witness it. I'm not a social person, and I've always been a night owl, so it's not unusual for me to go grocery shopping at midnight, though not often to overpriced stores. This was one of those exceptions. Anyway, I went to my nearest 7-Eleven, saw nobody in the store, figured the employee was doing something in the back, so casually browsed their selections for what I needed. It was about this time that another character entered the store. Let's call her Karen. Since I don't think she said her name, simply rushed to the counter and impatiently waited, not that I cared, thinking she was just trying to get some gas and leave. Boy, was I wrong. It only took her a minute, if that, to start shouting for an employee to serve her, and reluctantly, he did eventually come out of the back to face her, where he barely had the chance to greet her before she started saying how useless he was, and how she had to come all the way over here, and how she'd better be compensated. Having finally finished her rant, he actually got the chance to ask her what she needed help with, and here is where she went full crazy. She demanded that he gets off his lazy butt and opens the Subway next door to make her a sandwich, even going as far as to demand it for free because she had to track him down. It was clear that neither of us knew what she was talking about. He clearly didn't work for Subway and tried to tell her as much. But she just couldn't believe it, going on and on about how it's unacceptable, how she just wanted a sandwich, how he's being racist against her, and finally, the coup de grace, she demanded to speak to his manager. In response, he rather calmly said that he's the only employee in the store, a fact that she refused to believe, eventually demanding his manager's phone number, and when he refused that, she said that if he doesn't, she's going to call corporate and get them all fired. He said good, which seemed to shock her a bit, but she still huffed, pulled out her phone, and stormed out of the store. And by the time I left, she was still screaming into her phone in front of the Subway. Ha! I don't work here, or I don't work there. Since when do 7-Eleven staff double as sandwich artists? This next quick fun one is from IDWHL. Thought I'd do another one since I had some great feedback when mixing I Do and Don't Work Here Lady stories. The title of the story is When Someone Thinks They Know More Than the Staff Who Actually Work Here. This may not be completely relevant for here, so apologies if it should be somewhere else. So this happened during my very first job back in 1997, so don't expect me to remember any banter or repartee on my part. I worked in the admin office for a biochemistry lab at a small hospital. The lab would receive blood tests, sweat tests, and urine tests from GPs, the inpatient wards, outpatient clinics, etc. And I would book them in so the lab could run whatever tests had been requested. Samples came in marked as either urgent, meaning results within 60 minutes, or routine, meaning results within 4 hours. The only exception was tests that had to be sent to another lab. This was a small hospital, so it wasn't worth the department buying big, fancy analyzers for 6 figures if we did a particular test less often than once a day. It was just cheaper to pay for another lab to run the test for us, and the results turnaround was usually the next morning. The lab had recently undergone a significant restructuring in terms of what tests the lab would do, important for what happens. One of the analyzers had come to the end of its shelf life and was not going to be replaced. This was the machine that we primarily ran pregnancy tests on, along with a few tests that had become obsolete due to improvements in the main analyzers. The reason for not replacing it was that the hospital had lost its OBGYN outpatient service to a nearby major hospital, and although we had 2 OBGYN inpatient awards and an A&E, it wasn't enough to justify buying a new machine for the sake of what was now 2 or 3 pregnancy tests a month. So on a particular day, my phone rang, and it was one of the OBGYN registrars, like a resident in the US. She was complaining about how they had sent an urgent pregnancy test on a patient, and there was still no result 2 hours later. I apologized and advised her that we no longer do the test on site, and the sample had been sent to other hospital for them to perform the test. She said I was wrong and that we did do the test. She had sent down 3 pregnancy tests recently and had gotten the results back within an hour or so. I explained that yes, we used to run the tests on site, but that had stopped at the end of the day, the previous Friday, when the analyzer was taken away, presumably for disposal. She again said I was wrong. She said she was the doctor, casually mentioned her 3 degrees, and that she knew full well that we performed the test. I acknowledged that she was a doctor, who could have used a bedside manner to go with her 3 degrees, But that did not mean she knew how my service worked. I worked in my service, and I asked her which of us was better placed to be aware of what was happening within my service. She then demanded to speak to my manager, which for my department was the senior registrar of the lab. Why no admin manager, I have no idea. She said how she was going to get my manager to prove me wrong. She said she was going to tell my manager to run the test there and then and give her the result. A few hours later, I saw my manager, and I asked her if she had run the pregnancy test and informed the OBGYN registrar of the result like she had been told to. I got a playful clip around the ear for my sass. The OBGYN registrar got a talking to by her consultant. Oh, brother. Nobody likes a know-it-all, especially one that waves their degrees around in everyone's face every time they're corrected on something. Third story is Best Longs Employee Ever. This is a good story. I used to live in a fancy part of California where a lot of celebrities live. It was just a normal, beautiful Halloween day that I was at Long's drugstore. A very tall man suddenly asked me in an effusive British accent, "Excuse me, ma'am, can you please tell me where the glittery nail polish is? My daughter needs it for her costume." I was a little stunned because I was looking at John Cleese from Monty Python, A Fish Called Wanda, and a million other things. I've loved John Cleese ever since I saw Monty Python on TV when I was 10 years old. I said, "Of course," and showed him. He thanked me politely, and he went to go pay. Fast forward about 2 months later, I'm at Long's again, and here comes John Cleese heading straight towards me. He recognized me, I assume, as the nice employee who helped him the last time. I can't remember what he was looking for this time, but I led him to the aisle it was on, and he, again, thanked me for doing such a good job. I like to imagine that he looked around for me the next time, maybe even asked if the nice blonde girl was working that day, maybe even rising my status to Employee of the Year. Of course, the plaque would have to be a photo of a question mark, because I never once worked at Long's Drugs. I was so excited to find a story that referenced one of my favorite movies, A Fish Called Wanda. It's a classic. Our fourth story is from another subreddit, but on the same theme. Let me know what you think and leave a comment if you like or dislike it so I know whether to keep exploring new genres. Our fourth story is Customer thinks unsafe weather is okay for us to drive in, but not for the customer. I was told this today. I was off the day it happened. I work as a delivery driver for a building supply store. A customer who lives roughly 20 minutes away from the store ordered a bunch of material he needed delivered on a certain day. But the day of the delivery, a terrible snowstorm came in. It was really bad. Where I live, I couldn't even see 60 feet at times. So the workers in the store called the customer to inform him of the situation. And due to the weather and roads starting to close, they'll be unable to do the delivery that day. The customer was apparently really mad, saying, "Well, I was needing to do this job today." The worker talking to him apologized, saying that due to the weather and road closures occurring, it's unsafe for the delivery driver to make the drive to do the delivery. The customer replied, "Well, none of the roads are closed around me, so you guys could still make it." My coworker replied back, "We aren't risking the safety of our driver or risking anything just for you to get a bunch of material. If you need it that bad, then you're more than welcome coming here to get it." The customer then replied, "I'm not driving out to you guys in this weather." Needless to say, my coworker doubled down and refused to do any delivery to him in the bad weather, that he would have to wait until the weather improves. He demanded that it be delivered as soon as the weather was decent. A few days later, after the weather was better, the worker called the customer to give an update and got his wife. Her attitude was 1,000 times better. She said, "No rush, the job isn't being done until the weekend, so take your time." All I know is, if I was the one talking to this guy, I would have thrown his comment back at him about not wanting to drive out to us to get his material. I find OP's final comment interesting. I'd be way angrier at the fact that the wife pointed out the job isn't even happening until the weekend. And now onto our final story. I walked into a pharmacy wearing scrubs, so Karen appointed me as head doctor. So, little old groggy me, medical intern, is finally leaving the hospital after a 36-hour-long shift, the second of the week. It is a Friday, and I am really looking forward for everything to go dark as soon as my head hits a pillow. But first, I need to go to a pharmacy. In my country, some pharmacies have a small lab adjacent where vid tests can be taken, and a few lab technicians, chemists, and general practitioners may be found to do certain procedures, run certain tests, and make common diagnoses. Here's the thing. They are all wearing the full one-piece white hooded suits and protective gear you all have seen so much. I am wearing surgical scrubs. So in enters a very sleep-deprived little old me to the pharmacy, who immediately goes on to examine the toothpaste and brushes. After a little while, I hear a throat being cleared, so I say, "Oh, my bad," and scoop over closer to the shelves to let the person walk by. Wrong answer. The person replies, "No, I need you to take a look at me. The line to the appointments area is too long." Confused, I turn around and see an all too familiar look, a curly, bleached, shoulder-length haircut, blue eyelid makeup that looks more like two slapped-in Post-it notes than anything else, eye-searing lipstick, and pink, glistening claws to go along with a predatory cat pattern top. "Oh, I don't work here," I reply, knowing it won't do. "I work in a hospital," I say, hoping it is enough justification for Karen to understand why I'm dressed the way I am. She of course dismisses my claim and says I must work here as I am uniformed and stacking shelves. Yikes, the Karen's logic. I simply reply, "No, but I'm sure an employee will be happy to help you." Karen replies with, "You are a health worker, why don't you help me?" As an intern, I don't even have my degree yet. I can't and shouldn't do much even if I wanted to. And I simply reply, "I'm not on duty and I don't—" She interrupts. "Hey," snapping her fingers. "Hey," snapping her fingers again. "I paid for my ticket just like everyone else. You will see me." Again, I don't work here and I have no obligation to do random consults on the wild whenever you please, lady. A floor tile nearly broke upon the gaping of her jaws. At this point, she is pissed. As if summoned by her indignation, a manager walks over and asks if all is well. Karen seizes her opportunity to talk faster than you can blink. "No, this employee is very rude. I want him fired." Ma'am, he does not work here. Our employees wear— He works here. Stop trying to cover for him. You need to fire him now. His behavior is unacceptable. He refuses to help me. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to stop harassing customers or leave." Karen, now enraged, letting out a hybrid between a roar and a sigh. "Oh, I can't believe the audacity of you people to treat customers here. This is outrageous." She slaps the products off the closest shelf, sending items flying onto the manager and me, an accusatory pink-clawed index finger flying erratically. "I will not give you sphincter holes any business, and I hope this putrid little pharmacy goes under." She storms off in a huffing and puffing. I hurry off to pay and leave before she looks at the appointment ticket still clutched in her hand and realizes she paid for something that she has not used and decides to return, demanding a refund or worse, attention. I exit the pharmacy and movement catches my eye. I turn and I see Karen inside her SUV, foaming from the mouth, clutching her steering wheel and violently pushing and pulling herself. Then she sees me. The horror. I walk faster, trying not to look at her. She lowers a window and starts screaming some more at me. I ignore her and hurry to my escape pod on wheels. Escape successful. This Karen really sounds like she is straight out of the wild. How the heck does she manage to snap her fingers at people with such massive claws? OP's lucky she wasn't lurking outside the store waiting to pounce. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.